In this lesson, we're still continuing going over the graphs of our radical functions and reviewing domain and range, but now also focusing on the end behavior. So literally looking at the end as x approaches infinity as we're going to the right, and as the x values are approaching negative infinity, what's happening to the end of our graph, or the y values. So here, again, with that reminder, with our domain and range, right? So domain, we identify that starting point. So here we're at -4, 2, and then going on in this direction. So our domain is the x value starting at -4, and the y values are starting at 2 for our range. Then notice here, we're from our starting point, our graph is going to the left or to the right. To the left, which means our domain, our x values are less than or equal to -4. Or again, we're all, starting in negative infinity and stopping at -4 and including it. So remember, right, we need that bracket. Then from here, we're going up. Our y values are greater than or equal to 2. So now we're starting at 2 and including it, so with the bracket, and going on and on and on to infinity with your parentheses because we can't include it. Now, the end behavior is what's going to be new for us. So keeping in mind, we actually still need the starting point here with our end behavior. So as x's are approaching infinity, so as we're going to the right towards all of our positive values towards infinity, f of x. So f of x is the same as the y value. So again, f of x is the same as asking for y. So as x approaches infinity, what is our y approaching? So as we're going to the right, so we're going to read the graph as we're going to the right to infinity. Well, what happens to our graph? Well, boom, it stops right here at what y value? 2. So as we are going to the right towards infinity, our graph stops at the y value of 2. So that is our end behavior. So then here, as we're going, as x's are approaching negative infinity. So now as we're going towards all the negative values, right? So as we're going to the left, so as our x's are approaching negative infinity, what are the y values, the f of x approaching? So now we're going to read it to the left, right? Because we're going to the negative. Well, what's happening? Our graph is going up, 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 right? So as we're going to the left, the graph is going up to positive infinity. So it is not stopping. So that is our end behavior. Let's do the next one. We'll again review with our domain and range. So identifying our starting point. So here I'm at -6, 3. So the domain, the x values are starting at -6, and the range, the y values are starting at 3. And then going on in this direction. So here we go. From the starting point, we are going to the right. So that means greater than or equal to -6. So again, we're starting, including -6, and then going on and on and on to infinity. And keep that parentheses because we're not including. Then from here, what direction are we going? Up or down? We're going down. So this is our less than or equal to 3. So we're actually starting at negative infinity, and the highest value we're stopping at is 3. So keeping in mind the bracket here as well. Now let's look at end behavior. Again, we're going to need the point because that's going to be part of our end behavior. As x's are approaching infinity, so as we're going to positive infinity, as we're going to the right, what is our f of x, or what are the y values approaching? So as we're reading our graph to the right, well, what's happening to our graph? What direction is it going? It's going down. So now notice we are going down as we're going to the right. So the y values, f of x, are approaching negative infinity. Then as we're going to the left, right, towards all of our negative infinity. So as we're reading the graph now to the left, what are the y values approaching, right? So we're going to now read our graph to the left. And what's happening? Well, it's going up, but then boom, it stops, right? This is our stopping point. Where is it stopping at? The y value of 3. So again, this is our end behavior here. So we're going to do a couple more examples. Go ahead and pause the video though and make sure with example 3 that you remember and you're good to go on the domain and range. And so now for the domain and range, again, we need that starting point, right? Because our graph is then going on in one direction. You should have identified 1, 6. So our domain x value starting at 1, range y value starting at 6. Then here from the starting point, the graph is going to the left. So all x values are less than or equal to 1, or starting in negative infinity and stopping at 1. Then the range, our y values going down. So less than or equal to 6. So again, negative infinity and stopping here at 6. Remember, right, parenthesis and bracket. Now let's take a look at the end behavior. So as x's are approaching infinity, so what direction are we looking at? Are we going to read the graph to the left, or are we going to read it going to the right? To the right. That's towards your infinity, right? As we're going to the right, what are the y values approaching? Our f of x. So we're going to start from the left here, going to the right. We're going up, 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 but then boom, we're stopping at what y value? 6. So then now we're going to go as x approaches negative infinity. So now we're going to read to the what direction? The left. So as x's are approaching negative infinity, as we're reading our graph to the left, what are the y values? What is f of x approaching? So now we're going to start here, and now we're going to the left. So as we're going to the left, we're going down, 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 and not stopping, right? So we're going to go on and on and on down into negative infinity. So now we've got our Q-Drew function. Let's see if you remember the Q-Drew function domain and range. Is there a starting or ending point to identify? No. So what is always the domain and range of our Q-Drew function? All reals, negative infinity to infinity. So again, all reals, negative infinity to infinity, constantly going left and right, constantly going up and down. Now the end behavior, as x's are approaching infinity. So as we're going what direction? To the right. So as we're going to infinity, what are the f of x or what are the y values approaching? So as we're going to the right, notice how we're going down. We're going down, we're going down, and not stopping. So negative infinity. Then as we're going to negative infinity, so as we're now going to read our graph going to the left, what is the end approaching? Our f of x, our y. So now we're going to go to the left. Notice how we're going up, 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 and not stopping. So y values are going up to infinity. So go ahead and pause the video now and try. There are 3 U tries. So go ahead and pause the video and try those 3 U tries on your own. And here we go. So again, identify the starting point because that's for domain and range and for your end behavior now. So we're starting at 1, negative 5. That means your x values are starting at 1. Your range, your y values are starting at negative 5. Your graph is going to the left. So your domain is less than or equal to 1, or again here, starting at negative infinity and stopping at 1. Then your range, the graph was going up. So now the y values are greater than or equal to negative 5, or again, starting at negative 5 and going up to infinity. Then the end behavior, as we're going to the right, to positive infinity, the y values are stopping on the right side at the y value of negative 5. Then as you're going to the left to negative infinity, the graph is going up, 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 up to positive infinity. So then here again, your starting point is 1, 4, going on in this direction. So your x values, your domain is starting at 1. Your range is starting at 4. Then here, the graph is going to the right, so greater than or equal to 1. So we're starting at 1 and going on to infinity. But then you're going down, so now the y values are less than or equal to 4. So now we're starting in negative infinity and stopping at 4. Then here the end behavior. So as we're going to the right to infinity, the graph is going down, 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 down to negative infinity. Then as we're going to the left to negative infinity, the graph is going up, but stopping at the y value of 4. So then here for the Q-Drew function, going on and on and on in both directions, right? But we're identifying the end behavior. So here, as x approaches infinity, as we're going to the right, what direction is our graph going? Going up to infinity. So I can cross out C and D because this said negative infinity. Then as we're going to the left to negative infinity, the graph is going down to negative infinity. So that's why the answer here is B.